Hey guys, Josh here back with another review. This time we're going to be talking about 2024's The Crow. This of course stars Bill Skarsgard, FKA Twigs, and Danny Huston. Directed by Rupert Sanders, who gave us Ghost in the Shell and Snow White and the Huntsman. This of course is a remake to the 1994 film The Crow, which starred Brandon Lee, the late great Brandon Lee. 30 years old. Cannot believe it. That's so wild. Unfortunately, word of mouth, if you aren't aware, that this movie is not so good. So it's really not a good birthday present to the original or to its fans, it would seem. We'll get there. So this remake, of course, has been in development hell for a very long time. It's gone through a few stars, Bradley Cooper, Jason Momoa, and finally Bill Skarsgard took the role, and everything lined up for this remake to finally happen after so much time. Of course, we had the follow-up films to the original Crow. They got worse, and there was a television show which I heard was promising, but after all of those attempts, the whole franchise just died. So now it's been resurrected in this remake. I'm a fan of the 1994 film, and I always welcomed sequels to it. I was very intrigued by the whole mythos. I'm not familiar with the comic it's based on, but I think we all love someone who comes back from the dead or gets beat up and stands back up to one's bullies and saves the day, right? But overall, it shouldn't be touched because the original is so iconic for its time. Mostly because Brandon Lee died making the film. And we were very lucky the studio decided to move forward and finish the film that we got. And of course, it's known for its look and its characters, the music, just the whole environment it presents. It's in a bubble, if you will. In fact, I didn't know till recently that city, I always thought it was New York. I don't know why I thought that, but it's actually Detroit. You wouldn't even know it though, because of how it was filmed and what was shown and what wasn't shown. You know, but often the distance was very vague. In the early stages of this remake, just hearing about it, it didn't set well with me. But overall, I try to stay positive and see the end result. Over time with other properties, I think we all now know maybe we shouldn't judge off of pictures, although it was very hard not to when they first showed the stills. It was a very different Eric Draven and Shelley Webster, you could say. But yeah, as we got a trailer, I was more and more intrigued to see the film. I was excited. I was like, oh, this could be something cool. It looks neat. I like the cast. And overall, I gave it a shot. I went and saw it. Despite all the bad reviews, I ignored that. I went and just took a chance. That being said, this movie is a mess. But it starts out promising. And has pretty good setups. It might be stretching a little bit, but it all seems to be building towards something much bigger. And that payoff just doesn't ever come, I feel. It's very rushed and just kind of lazy. It could have just been edited to death, perhaps. Maybe a director's cut of this film would be better. But yeah, a lot of the concepts were very vague to some degree. At times, it was slow-paced, and when the action came, it was just kind of a CGI mess of things, and just not really memorable. It did, however, present new mythos to the world of The Crow, if you will. Some of it was very intriguing. Certain elements seemed to belong to another film entirely, not of the Crow world. But perhaps the comics explored such things. But overall, if you're intrigued to see this film, I would wait for streaming. And if not, just stick to the original. The Crow concept should not die because of Brandon Lee. Just leave his film's characters alone. Unless, of course, you wanted to spin off some of the side characters, like they did with Sarah in The Crow City of Angels. The biggest question I have from seeing this film, and I'm going to get into spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, thank you for watching. And please check out our other reviews and content on this channel. It is much appreciated. So getting into spoilers, I won't go in terrible depths here, and perhaps some of you have heard the spoilers by now. This film would have gotten far less hate if it was just another Crow film and not a remake. The characters' names, I only heard their first names. I never heard their full names. You take that out of the equation, it's a whole other thing. It's easily more accepted, but no other characters are remade in this. It was pointless to remake it. The expansion on the Crow concept would have been more welcoming as well. The bad guy in this movie, played by Danny Huston, he sold his soul to the devil. Of course, we never see this. It's spoken of, and you do see him put people in trances and make them do terrible things to other people or themselves. But you never really get that backstory. And he has this whole organization working for him because he's lived a long time. But you don't know how any of this is formed, and I guess we don't really need to know, but it's just kind of lazy, I would say. Of course, the whole reasoning Eric and Shelley die in this film is just stupid to me, especially in the world we live in when you can deep fake things. This is all over a shitty camera phone video that shows our bad guy doing his act, but they could have easily claimed it as fake or just delete the thing, wipe it from the web. And the way he cons his victims is very creepy and cool. I really did dig that to start with. But overall, it's fake. He's kind of playing the same villain he did in Wonder Woman. And Bill Skarsgard, I'm a fan of his work. I think he and his brothers and his dad, they're great. They're all great. They were just like made to entertain, and they do a great job. I think he did the best with the material he had, and I don't fault him at all. I think his look overall, as the Crow, was pretty cool. Not as Eric Draven or Eric, but he did bulk up for the part. And yeah, the tattoos, it's very contemporary look, you could say, to a damaged soul, if you will. But that's the other thing. The original Eric and Shelley weren't really damaged souls. They were in a fairy tale. They were the epitome of happily ever after. This new Eric and Shelley are just not that. They're very damaged. And that's okay. But for a remake, why don't you just make a whole new film with new characters, is what I feel. And I think a lot of people will feel that way too. The good thing, of course, that came out of this is it made me want to watch the original again. I hadn't seen it for a very long time. And I heard it recently is coming out in 4K, or has already. So I'm really wanting to check that out. And I had already planned on seeing the original before this film, but just didn't get around to it. So, of course, right after I saw this film, I needed to cleanse my palate, if you will. So I watched it, and it just gets better and better as I age. As a kid, it was just nuts, this film, because of everything surrounding it. Brandon Lee's accidental death. I was a huge Bruce Lee fan at the time, so it was just all a weird timing thing. You had the Bruce Lee story come out. It was just hard to grasp as a kid, I think. Like, wow, this man's dead. It felt like it was a real movie versus fiction. The looks and the characters and the darkness, it's just its own thing. It wasn't a perfect film, but it's very close, and that's okay. Being intrigued about the original film, I did some more research, and I came across this concept. They filmed some of it. It was of the Skull Cowboy. He basically guided Eric along the way of his journey as the Crow, explaining what had happened to him and told him the rules and such. Sarah's narration would later on replace this whole concept, so they couldn't really have both. It would have been redundant, so they got rid of the Skull Cowboy. But that concept alone, they could have used in this new film. Would have been very cool, I think, to see, and especially with new effects and all. They really could have pulled it off. But overall, with this review, A24, who put this film out, they believed that remaking The Crow would carry them to the land of opportunity. But sometimes something so bad happens, this film, that it takes them to box office hell. Their will to do more should now rest. If anything good has come out of this film, which I'm kind of reiterating, is that the original film stands taller and gains further acceptance by the fans as good enough. With that said, hopefully I've saved you some money and time, but by all means, go check The Crow out if you still wish to. The original is still the best. And that's my opinion. Take care.